This is the Bay of Marathon on the eastern coast of Greece. I'm Matthew Settle. Over 2,000 years ago, in September 490 BC, 600 ships lay the entire length of this shoreline, while an army of 30,000 Persian invaders raced up the beach. Their mission? To capture Athens and conquer Greece for the empire of Darius, the king of Persia. But 11,000 Greek infantrymen stood in their way here at Marathon. Now, with new video game technology, you are about to see this great battle as never before. The vast numbers of soldiers, the troop formations, how they fought, and how the battle was won. Get the view the generals wish they'd had now in decisive battles. This is the burial mound of Marathon. Beneath me lie the remains of Greek soldiers who died in battle on 9/11, 490 BC. At that time, Greece was not a unified nation. It was a collection of independent city-states, like Athens, Corinth, and Sparta, each with their own laws and systems of government. The most influential city was Athens. 20 years earlier, the Athenians had gotten rid of their king, Hippias, who was a cruel and brutal ruler. Athens became a democracy and began to flex its muscle against Persia, the greatest power in the Mediterranean at the time. Athens even supported a revolt of some of the Greek islands, who were trying to break free from Persian rule.
The Persians saw themselves having a sort of God-given right to rule the world, and they expanded in every direction. They probably expected most countries and nations that they encountered to simply surrender. Their procedure of declaring war was in fact to demand a surrender, and if that wasn't then given, they would fight.
The Persian king Darius became furious with the Athenians. He decided that when the time was right, not only would he conquer Athens, but all of Greece.
Darius had a servant. Every time he sat down to dinner before he would eat, the servant would whisper in his ear, "Sire, do not forget the Athenians."
So, when the deposed king, Hippias, fled from Athens to Persia, he received a friendly welcome.
I think it would be fair to regard Hippias essentially as a political pawn. The Persians weren't really too concerned what type of regime they would set up in conquered territory, so long as they were confident that he would be loyal to them.
In 491 BC, Darius sent envoys to Athens and Sparta. They demanded gifts of earth and water as acknowledgement of the power of Persia. The Greeks threw the envoys into a ravine used for executing criminals. The Spartans threw the second pair down a well.
What the Greeks most hated was the idea of slavery, of not being free, and they were determined not to allow themselves to be taken over by a foreign power without a fight.
Darius was furious. He assembled a huge fleet of 600 ships and mobilized his army. And when they set out for Greece in 490 BC, the exiled king Hippias sailed with them. The invasion force of 30,000 men was led by Datis, Persian commander in the west. Hippias was only too happy to advise him on the perfect landing place, the broad beach at Marathon Bay.
The Persians had very consciously picked a place that suited the kinds of forces that they had. Basically, within the territory of Athens, they couldn't have found pretty much a better place for them to land.
This is the plain of Marathon, 6 miles long and 2 miles broad. Apart from the marshes at either end, it's an unbroken plain, perfect for the battle tactics of the Persians with their light infantry and cavalry. Even in early September, these marshes were wet and soggy. A man couldn't walk on them, let alone several thousand horses. Hippias did not have a happy homecoming. As he jumped ashore, he had a coughing fit and spat out a tooth. When he looked for it in the sand, he couldn't find it. And he took this as a sign from the gods that he would not regain his kingdom. While Datis unloaded his ships and assembled his men, the Greek army was gathering in the mountains overlooking Marathon. This Athenian army was made up of many local tribes loyal to Athens, 1,000 men each from 11 tribes. each commanded by its own general. But in overall command was the Greek general Miltiades. Missing from these 11,000 men were the fiercest and most feared Greek fighting force, the Spartans. Miltiades sent a runner, Pheidippides, to Sparta to ask for help.
The Greeks generally used runners as messengers, sometimes horsemen, but very often runners, partly perhaps due to the rough terrain that they often had to negotiate.
Pheidippides was a day runner, someone who could run all day delivering messages. According to the historian Herodotus, he ran the 150 miles between Athens and Sparta in 2 days, but his epic run was all in vain. The Spartans were celebrating a religious festival, and they refused to march until after the full moon.
The Spartans were notoriously pious, notoriously slow, notoriously tardy, and arrogant in a way. And I think they felt, oh, we'll just get over there when we get there.
Athens would stand alone. Miltiades faced impossible odds. We know very little about this Greek commander. He was from a leading family in Athens and must have had considerable military experience to win command of the army. But we may have one link that stretches back 2,500 years. This helmet is an exact replica of the one recovered by archaeologists. It's from exactly the right period and had the inscription, Miltiades dedicates this helmet to Zeus. It was very probably Miltiades' own helmet and was exactly the kind worn by the Greeks at Marathon. The Greek army fought as infantrymen, or hoplites. They were called this after the shield they carried, the hoplon. The hoplite